with Hal Rowe, WHKY Talk Radio.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Rowe at 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Have you heard of the Citizens for Equity in Government? There is a petition right now that they're in the process of gathering names for I was going to say change, but basically I've been told this morning to reinstitute a policy that was in the city of Hickory for a number of years on the way that elections were held and the way that people were selected for the city council. Joining us this morning, Joe Brannock, supporter for the petition from the Citizens for Equity in Government, as well as Billy Sudderth. He is a facilitator for the meetings for the Citizens for Equity in Government. Gentlemen, nice to have you with us this morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Good to be here.
First of all, tell me a little bit about the reason for the petition. And Mr. Sudderth, I'll start with you. And Mr. Brannock, if you want to jump in, that's fine. But tell me the reason for the petition, if you will, Mr. Sudderth.
Well, we were concerned initially last winter when the city decided to demolish the swimming pools in the Ridgeville and West Hickory areas.
Right.
And we kept pushing and about don't destroy the pools, give us a chance to, to find funds to refurbish them on some level and something like that. All that was turned down, and then the city even went so far as to hold hearings. The hearings favored swimming pools in Hickory. They hired a consultant. The same decision was reached that they favor swimming pools in Hickory. And then we found at that time that we were powerless over what was going to take place in our communities, especially the infrastructures of the communities. So we decided to organize and found out how we could find a way to have a voice in what takes place in our communities in issues that control our lives, and we found that how powerless we were. That's when we began to organize the Citizens for Equity in Government.
Okay.
And out of that came the fact that we needed to have a voice on city council, a voice in City Hall that supports the wishes of the people. And then we decided to push for the petition requesting City Hall to change how they elected officials. First we asked, then we went out. Now we are out getting names on a petition to file for a referendum for the citizens to vote on the type of government they want. And we're banking on that they want a democratic process of elected officials in the city of Hickory.
Now tell me about, is your understanding of the way that it's done now and the changes that you'd like to see? What is the petition asking for as far as a change in the election process? So let's start off with the way that it's done now, because I was basically describing it earlier, and I wanted to make sure I had it right, but you tell me the way that the primary is held and the election is held.
Right now, Hickory developed a blend process of electing officials right after the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I think they waited about 5 years. The blend system is where they ended Joe will talk about that more, where they ended the at-large system. Now they ended the ward system, the pure ward system that they had in place at that time, which would easily have given poor minority people representation on city council. They ended it, implemented the blend system, which is a form of at-large system where people can run out of their wards after being the top two vote getters, then moved to run citywide, and then the citywide election it makes it decisive about who's going to sit on city council. But most of the times we find, and nearly every time in the Ridgeview area, the person who was chosen by the ward could never win the citywide elections. So we figured that in order to get fair representation, we needed to go back and implement the ward system. So we began to research how we could do that, and we came up with the fact that we could actually put to the General Assembly, the electoral body in Raleigh, and right. they suggested that we ask for a referendum.
Okay.
And that referendum consists of 10% of the voting population in the city. If we can get those that 10% to sign the petition and agree. They don't even have to agree, just sign the petition. Then we can call for the referendum by the city, which it really costs a lot of money. The city council itself could give us democracy at the local level, but I know that they're not going to do that.
So the 10% of the registered voters in the area sign the petition.
Right.
At that time, that petition calls for a referendum,
right,
which would, of course, be then on the general ballot, that everybody in the city of Hickory, all the registered voters, would be able to vote on.
Right.
And Mr. Brannock, any comment on this so far? This is one of the things, I think, because we're getting into an area that you became interested in, because you commented before we came on the show, people were saying, oh, you want to change the way that these things are done. And you were telling me before we went on the air, it's not a change, it's a reinstatement of the way things used to be.
It's a reinstatement for most people. I'm 35, I was born in 1976, so I've only known the at-large system as it is today. Going back and researching it, I learned that, we did have a ward system. And just a brief history, in 1961, a committee was put together by City Council to look at the city charter, and it was a revision committee. And the purpose of that was to go through and compare the city charter to the state statutes and bring the two more in line. If something's redundant in the city charter that's amply covered in the state statutes, we can take that out of the charter. It's covered elsewhere.
Okay.
Part of that committee in 1961 came to council with a list of recommendations. One of those recommendations was to go to an at-large system. Unanimously, that recommendation was turned down in 1961. The issue came back up in 1967, and it was passed. And I don't know if we want to get into the history of that now, or do you want to do it later? But the way it was passed, it was, well, let me go back. It was a 5-member committee.
Okay. Now, the committee reporting to the council, right?
In 1961.
Okay.
Of the 5-member committee, only 3 members thought it was a good idea to go to the at-large system.
I'll tell you what, when we come back, we'll get into this a little bit, because Susie's fired the break music. We've got to go to a break. So when we come back, because it sounds like it's going to get a little complicated. Slightly complicated, but if you stick with it, we'll get into it and talk more with Joe Brannock when we come back, supporter of the petition from the Citizens of Equity and Government. Billy Sudderth, the facilitator for the Citizens of Equity and Government, joins us as well this morning. We'll be back with more First Talk right after this.